Welcome to episode 492 of the Recruitment, Marketing and Sales podcast. And I'm your host, Denise Oyston. And today I am recording and sharing with you part one of a two-part series that I wanted to create and deliver on setting priorities. And no, this isn't your classic, it's time that you set goals and how do you set goals and make them smart and all that. It's not that. It's about what is really important in your business now. There is so much going on at the moment from the perspective of the economy. In the UK, we've got all sorts happening with the Labour government. There's quite a lot happening across the pond in the US. Markets are all over the place. AI is around every corner that you look. And apparently, if you don't actually create an AI agent, you're going to die as a business in the next few weeks. Not true. So what I wanted to do is really share with you and give some context around the importance of setting priorities. And then in the next episode, to really do a deep dive on some of the most important priorities for recruiters as we come to the end of 1 year and we move into the next. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Recruitment, Marketing and Sales podcast. An obsessive focus on marketing and sales is the only way to accelerate your company growth. So listen in now as we share the latest strategies and techniques guaranteed to deliver you more placements and profits. Well, hi there, everyone. Hope you and yours are well as we cycle to the end of yet another year. And as you're listening to this podcast, for many of you, you've probably only got like 2 or 3 weeks in reality left until the end of the year and you shut up shop. And for our Aussie subscribers over the pond, then I know that many of you are going to be taking off on some holidays. That's not happening in the UK. Anyhow, let me get into talking about why I wanted to create this sort of mini series on setting priorities. Now, some of you may know, obviously, if you've been on our list for some time, that we have a program called Superfast Circle. And one of the things we do, we have a bonus event. And that is actually a live event where we get to see people in person. It happens in the UK and it's part of Superfast Circle program, and those who can actually turn up and we spend 2 days together. It normally happens around the first week in November, and it did this year down in Oxford. And Sharon and I discovered that Oxford is a long way from West Cumbria. In fact, it's 6 hours. So we actually stayed overnight, but we had a brilliant time. Some really good sessions. We had some guest speakers in as well. And one of the things that came up a lot was around what should I be doing? What's the main thing that I should be doing? What's my priorities for next year? Because I think there is a lot of confusion in the market at the moment. There's a lot going on, particularly around economic uncertainty, around growth. And obviously, AI is a disruptor in lots of ways, in a very positive way, though I think some people are getting very overwhelmed with AI and really need to just consider, what do I need to do when it comes to implementing AI in my business? I'm not going to be talking about that much over the next couple of episodes. I'll touch on it, but I think people are getting a bit overwhelmed with what should I be doing. And Sharon and I, we've been working with recruitment business owners for many years now. I think we're coming up to our 18th year. And there are several things that we see time and time again from brilliant recruitment professionals like yourselves. And in fact, we've been doing some work around this on different models to help people move through the process of marketing their business and for us to explain exactly what we do. And we shared some of this data when we were at the event a few weeks ago. And it's like the business owners that we see and we experience, and the people that generally we work with are solos, micros, through to small SMEs, and they have a pattern and a way of working. And it often starts for people when they're stuck. And we've noticed that generally people start off often when we first meet them, they're stuck and they're inactive and they're waiting for the market to change. This has been happening a lot. Or these particular individuals, they might be researching multiple tools, which is all good. However, at some point you need to make a decision and stop avoiding the real work and actually start doing some of the things that do work. Or we find people start to move forward. They're juggling several ideas that maybe they've heard about. They're starting to be a little bit more active, but they're exhausting themselves with marketing and sales activities that won't work for them. It's all right looking at a big company and seeing what they're doing. However, when you're an SME, it's very different, and especially different when you're a solo or a micro, because you've got to get those basics dialed in first, and resources do you have to actually implement some of these things. So today we're going to start part one of a discussion that could potentially transform the way you approach 2026, setting real priorities instead of that spray and pray approach that many of us fall into when we really do feel under pressure. And the current markets at the moment do put us under a lot of pressure. Because here's the thing, deep down, we all know that being busy isn't the same as being effective. Now, the holy grail is being busy and effective at the same time. Wouldn't that be amazing? That doesn't always happen. But when you're juggling client relationships, you've got candidate pipelines, you've got multiple placements happening all at once, it's so tempting to believe that doing more of everything will somehow yield results. And I think as human beings, we're sort of taught this, you need to do more. Sometimes it's, whoa, hang on a minute. You need to stop and think about what you're doing. So I'm going to share some things with you over the next couple of episodes that will help you understand where to focus your limited time and resources for maximum impact. Because the truth is, your competitors and some of the bigger organizations can outspend you on ads. They can hire a fancy pants marketing agency or temporarily outrank you in the search results. However, and this is really important for the people that I know listen to this podcast, they cannot replicate the authentic relationships that you create by consistently showing up in your market, in your chosen area, providing real value and demonstrating genuine expertise. So let's get into priorities and setting priorities. And let's start off, first of all, why, and there's some data around why spray and pray marketing is probably costing you more than you realize. And it's exactly the same. It's not just marketing, it's sales as well. It's that, if you like, that demand creation lever that you utilize in your business. So obviously, as you might expect, I analyze a lot of the market. I look at all the key marketing websites, look at all the research websites like Deloitte and Korn Ferry, all of the things. And there are several pieces of marketing data that basically reveal that a focused competitor might be spending, 500 quid or dollars to acquire a client. Yes, it can be as much as that. Whereas certain other agencies who are using that spray and pray approach could easily be spending 4 times that or more, and literally they are to get the same results. So you can see here that being focused actually costs you a lot less. That's 5 times more for the same outcome. When you don't have priorities and you're not doing things in a focused way. However, what's more concerning, it isn't just about wasted spending, obviously. It's about opportunity cost, the cost of using resources and using them ineffectively. There's a lot more data, a lot more research studies that demonstrate that organizations that prioritize scattered, often low cost, cheap tactics over a strategic focus experience a much lower marketing ROI and actually a much higher churn rate. From an ROI perspective, they're experiencing a 52% less ROI, and often happens is that they get a higher churn rate, up to something around 40%, which is huge. So think about that for a moment. Not only are you spending more money, but also losing clients at a faster rate. So let's talk about a lovely marketing jargon term, and that's resource dilution. Says what it does on the tin. The fundamental problem with this spray and pray marketing is it's a phenomenon known as resource dilution. Probably you can work out what we're talking about here. So when you attempt to be everywhere at once, you're spreading your budget too thin. And also you're probably spreading you too thin because you're lacking that integrated strategy, and you really fail to excel at anything. And that can often be when people are trying to do too many things at once in too many sectors as well, which we'll come on to next week. So for recruitment businesses operating with limited resources, this is many people who are on this podcast or on our mailing list, this scattergun approach only wastes money, but it also prevents you from really developing that genuine expertise. And speaking of the challenges that we discuss on this podcast around attracting the clients that you want and the candidates to fill the roles that you get, it's a competitive market. And Sharon and I have taken some time away from the business to actually put together something that will help you figure out exactly where you stand with your marketing right now. Now, we've created a quick assessment specifically for recruitment search and staffing business owners just like you. And it's designed to help you identify whether you're effectively attracting both clients and candidates with your current marketing approach, or if there are some gaps that you need to address. Now, this quiz will just take a few minutes and it'll give you a picture of where your marketing is working and where it might be falling short. Because to be honest, in a market where 87% of companies are struggling with skills gaps and candidates are ghosting left, right, and centre, your marketing really does need to be spot on. And when you've taken this assessment, we will email you your personalised PDF. So it's personalised to you and it's related to the scores that you achieve and where you fit in a ranking. And what we know works when people are low on one score or high on another. And I think you'll find that incredibly useful too. So if you want to know and find out about your marketing, how it stacks up, then go to superfastrecruitment.co.uk/scorecard, and that will take you to a page. Put your name and email address in there, and then you'll go straight into the quiz. And again, it only takes a few minutes. Trust me, it's worth the time, especially if you feel like you're not achieving the results that you want currently with the market the way that it is, and you really want to assess where you are so you can make some changes. So let's get back to that podcast. Now, I'm going to share a fact with you here, and intuitively have a think about this. And I sense that the majority of you will, yeah, I think that's true. I get that. There's a stat basically that says that companies that select fewer priority initiatives are 16% more likely to be at the top tier of their industry than those with many or no priorities at all. Now, obviously, we can all get that if you've not got priorities, you're unfocused, you're unstructured, things don't happen in the same way. But you'd think that if people have loads and loads of priorities, then they do really well. And bizarrely, They don't, because they're spreading themselves too thin. And that probably sounds really logical to the majority of you, but beyond that, then there's obviously the hidden costs that a lot of people don't even talk about. And obviously, you're going to have a financial drain. Those unfocused strategies actually create several hidden costs that start to compound over time. First of all, there's wasted resources. Unfocused strategies create hidden costs that can compound over time. So first, there's wasted resources. Without a plan, you're essentially throwing money at marketing tactics, hoping something sticks. And it's interesting because when we speak to people and they come on a call and they want to find out about Superfast Circle, it's fascinating how many people fall into this area that they've spent on different things, but they've got no plan. They've heard somewhere, or they've watched something, or they've been on a free webinar that says, oh, you need to be doing A, B, and C, when actually their company doesn't need to be doing A, B, and C. So they've ended up spending money on something that is never in a month of Sundays going to work. The second thing is brand confusion, because inconsistent messaging across multiple scattered, I'm going to use the word campaigns. They're probably not campaigns. People just do something for a week and then they stop. It erodes trust. And as we all know, once trust starts to go, it's not the easiest thing to get back. And it makes it harder for clients to understand, what do they stand for? Who is this company? What do they stand for? What are their values? What can I expect if I work with Acme Recruitment? These are key things that people are thinking about more and more because, of course, they have more choice. And thirdly, there's missed opportunities. So while you're busy executing unfocused activities, you're missing those golden nuggets and moments to actually connect with your ideal clients. And one thing that we always encourage people to do is, you've got a lot of tier one connections on LinkedIn. What are you doing with them? And the number of people that say, oh, yeah, I probably got 4,000 or 5,000 and I haven't really done anything with them. There's absolute gold there. We've talked about the lead generation triad. Many of you have attended that webinar. And if you've not, then drop me an email. I'll send a link and you can go and watch a recording of it. And I'll mention it again next week. But that is something that a lot of people miss out on. And of course, finally, attribution, because without focus, you can't accurately measure what's working, making it impossible to improve or justify your investment. Marketing is a short, medium, and long game. You will get results throughout the process. However, you do need to look at what's working for you. There is a reason that you are listening to episode 492 of this podcast, because this podcast works. It gets us onto people's radar. People get a sense of who we are. And it was interesting actually talking to one of our lovely clients, Barry, on dinner one night at the event. And he'd come across us from listening to one of our podcast recordings and thought we sounded okay. And so he connected with us. And obviously now, a year or so later, we're working together. So you can see that is the difference. But I know that because I measure it. So what about will actually happen when you set, that strategic alternative, you have a real plan, when you set some real priorities. Now, I don't want you to think that, that strategic prioritization is all about doing less. Oh, I need to think about my strategy before I do anything. Strategy is one thing, and you can create your strategy much faster than people realize. It's about getting that plan together. It's about getting your strategy nailed down and then taking action, because until you move into action, once you move into action, then you can move things and tweak and adjust as needed. However, you can't do that if A, you haven't got a strategy, and A, you don't move, and B, you don't move into action. So your prioritization, that strategic prioritization, creates a single forward-focused vision that can align with your entire business. And always remember, the growth engines for any business are marketing and sales. So when a business owner understands their strategic priorities, they can make better daily decisions about where to focus their energy. Now, one of the most immediate benefits of prioritization is the ability to allocate your resources. So that could be your time. It could obviously be financial. It could be, for many of you, it could be what tech you buy, what AI you invest in for your workflow, and what your team do. So here's what can happen. Your marketing spend can actually decrease while your results increase because you've got focused campaigns that deliver better results than scattered efforts. And that's why a lot of people join us at Superfast Circle, because we ran a marketing agency for recruiters for many years. We tested, we measured, we know what works, and we can get rid of all the fluff for you and say, okay, this is what you need to implement for a business your size, and this will work. Faster sales growth. So when you're managing your pipeline and you've got that focus, you can really accelerate your growth. There's a lot of data. Again, just go and Google it. Go onto your favorite AI tool. SMEs working with a strategic plan grow 30% faster on average. And here's something else. When you know you have a robust strategic plan, it gives you a framework for evaluating new initiatives as they rise, because they are incredibly distracting. So if you know, okay, this is our plan, the market we operate in is incredibly dynamic. It's changing constantly. And of course, recruitment involves people, but it also involves a lot of busy work as well, which AI can really help you with. So when you start to think about that, it's very easy to go off on a tangent, think, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. Well, hang on a minute. First of all, you need to do some BD, and you maybe need to pick up the phone and speak to a few more people. But what can happen is, if you know what your strategic priority is, you can say yes and no much faster and not get distracted by that bright, shiny object or the next large language learning model. When you've got something like Claude, you've got something like Chat GPT that really is probably going to be sufficient for your needs. So priority setting really will give you that competitive advantage. Recruitment, search, staffing companies that embrace this process of strategic prioritization really can outperform the competitors in several ways. First of all, market differentiation by focusing resources on specific areas. You can become genuinely excellent rather than merely adequate across many areas. Client confidence. When you demonstrated your expertise in priority areas, we talked about that trust word before, it builds trust, and it starts to command premium fees. Faster adaptation. A lot of people listening to this are not in big organizations. You can be very nimble, you can move. When market conditions change, that framework that you've got, that strategy, allows you to pivot intelligently rather than just, to be honest, chaotically. Sustainable growth focused strategies do create predictable revenue. Most people just give up too early, and it can really start to reduce that feast and famine thing. And here's the beautiful thing: trust is earned. It's not bought. And once you've earned it in this way, it really will start to drive your long-term growth. So now you understand why strategic prioritization matters, and obviously how it can bring you a competitive advantage next year. You can see how that spray and pray approach is probably costing you a lot more than you realize, and that setting priorities could be something you could do differently next year, and it could really work. So that's what we're going to dive into in next week's episode, exactly where to start. I'm going to walk you through 6 critical priority areas that the research, the data really does demonstrate that it drives real results for recruitment businesses, and will do so in 2026. We'll cover everything from niche specialization, client retention, looking after candidates, tech investments that actually matter, and how you can pull all these together. So trust me, you won't want to miss it. Obviously, it will, if you are subscribed on iTunes or Spotify, it's going to drop into your iTunes and your spots. And if you are not subscribed, then subscribe, because we always send a reminder email every week when the podcast drops, so you can go along and listen to it. And on the website, this is where I use AI, there is a full transcription of this podcast created by one of our favorite AI tools. So there's a couple of odd words in there, you know why, but it enables me to get these podcasts out to you faster. So this is Denise saying bye for now, and I'll see you next week. If you enjoy this podcast and this year you are ready to take your marketing to the next level, then check out Superfast Circle. This is a unique marketing program designed specifically for recruiters and their marketeers. You get access to 2 virtual marketing directors, you get consultancy, you get your hand held through the whole process, training, consulting, and we provide content resources. So go over to superfastrecruitment.co.uk /join and check out what's available.